Hello my dear students and welcome to today's lesson 8B Vocabulary and Grammar for grade 9 Students book page 87 and workbook page 84. Let's get started. As usual my students, let's start with the learning objectives. Students will be able to 1. Identify in which sports do you need the given equipment. 2. Express obligation, lack of obligation, and prohibition using certain models. Look at the following pictures. What do these pictures have in common? Excellent, my students. Sports. What sports do these pictures show? Think, then answer. Now let's answer this question together. What sports do these pictures show? The first one, volleyball. The second one, ice hockey. The third one, golf. The next sport is, very good my students, swimming. And this one is running. Look at this picture. Very good my students. Baseball. Well done my students. Now open your students book page 87. 2. Vocabulary. Listen, look and discuss. In which sports do you need equipment like this? Look at these pictures. Now we are going to identify in which sports you need equipment like this. Let's listen, then answer.
2. Vocabulary. Listen, look and discuss. In which sports do you need equipment like this? Helmet, board, wetsuit, goggles, knee pads, racket, net, stick, bat, goal.
Now pause the video, think, then answer. Now let's check your answers. We need helmet for cycling, American football, ice hockey, mountain biking, rock climbing, skydiving, and motorcycling. And we need board for surfing, windsurfing, snowboarding, and skateboarding. Very good, my students. We need wetsuit for windsurfing, surfing, and scuba diving. And we need goggles for swimming and skiing. Good job, my students. We need knee pads for American football, volleyball, and skateboarding. And we need racket for tennis, squash, and badminton. Well done, my students. We need net for tennis, volleyball, table tennis, basketball. The basket is a hoop with a net, and a hoop is a ring and this is the net. We need a stick for ice hockey, field hockey, and lacrosse. Excellent, my students. We need a bat for baseball and cricket. And we need a goal for football, ice or field hockey, handball, rugby, and water polo. Well done, my students. Now let's move to the second part of our lesson today, which is grammar. For expressing obligation or necessity, we use these three modal verbs: have to, need to, and must. And we use had to in the past of have to, and we use will have to in the future. Let's see the following example. We must or have to or need to eat healthy food to keep fit. This means it is necessary to eat healthy food. For expressing lack of obligation or necessity, we use the following verbs: don't have to, don't need to, and needn't. And remember that we don't use to after needn't. Let's see the following example. You don't have to or don't need to or needn't go swimming if you are busy. This means it is not necessary to go swimming. For expressing prohibition, we use these two modal verbs, mustn't and can't. Look at the following example. You mustn't or can't use mobile phones while driving. This means it is not allowed, or it is prohibited, or it is against the law to use your mobile while driving. Look at the following examples. What do you notice about the underlined verbs after the modals? Here, after must, have to, need to, we use eat. After don't have to, don't need to, and needn't, we use go. After mustn't or can't, we use the verb use. Excellent, my students. We notice that all the verbs are in the infinitive form. Eat, go, use. Very good, my students. This is a grammar reference in the student's book, page 122. Now pause the video, then read. Now open your student's book, page 87. 3. Grammar. Exercise A. Read the examples and decide what each of them means. Choose A, B, or C. A. It is necessary. B. It isn't necessary. C. Don't do it. Now, pause the video. Read these examples. Then decide what each of them means. Now let's check your answers. Number 1. You have to wear special boots to go rock climbing. Excellent, my students. It's A. It is necessary. Why? Because we use have to express obligation and necessity. Number 2. You don't have to wear special clothes. Very good, my students. It's with B. It isn't necessary. Why? Because we use don't have to express lack of obligation and necessity. Number 3. You must be in good shape. Here we use must. Very good, my students. It's with A. It is necessary. Why? Because we use must to express obligation and necessity. Number 4. Inexperienced climbers mustn't climb alone. Excellent, my students. It's with C, which means don't do it. Why? Because we use mustn't to express prohibition. Number 5. Inexperienced climbers need to complete a training program first. Very good, my students. It's with A. It is necessary. Why? Because we use need to express obligation and necessity. Number 6. Experienced climbers don't need to complete a training program. Good job, my students. It's with B. It isn't necessary. Why? Because we use don't need to express lack of obligation and necessity. Number 7. You needn't worry. Experienced instructors will teach you how to climb. Excellent, my students. It's with B. It isn't necessary. Why? Because we use needn't to express lack of obligation and necessity. Well done, my students. Let's discuss this note in the student's book, page 87. We use must or have to express obligation in the present or future. For other tenses, we use the forms of have to, had to, and will have to. I had to leave work early yesterday. This is in the past. I will have to leave work early tomorrow. And will have to for the future. The second point, we can use can't instead of mustn't in situations where you are not allowed to do something, especially when a law or rule is involved. For example, you can't or mustn't park here. Okay guys, this is the reading activity in the student's book, page 86. Here we are going to underline any examples expressing obligation or necessity in the present or future, lack of obligation or necessity in the present or future, and prohibition. Now, pause the video, then underline. Now let's check your answers. Must be, need to be, and have to complete. These examples express obligation or necessity in the present or future. The next one, you don't have to. And this example or don't have to expresses lack of obligation or necessity in the present or future. The last one is you mustn't be over, and mustn't here expresses prohibition. Good job, my students. Now let's move to the student's book, page 87, exercise B. Look at the signs and make sentences using have to, don't have to, must, mustn't, need to, don't need to, and needn't. As you see here, these are the signs, and we are going to make sentences using these verbs. Now, pause the video, then make sentences. Now let's check your answers. Number 1. Very good, my students. You need to, have to, or must buy a ticket. Here we use these verbs to express obligation or necessity in the present or future. The next one. You mustn't run, drink, or eat in the swimming pool area. Here we use mustn't to express prohibition. The next one. You need to, have to, or must be a member of the sports center to park here. Or you mustn't or can't park here if you are not a member of the sports center. Here we use these verbs to express obligation or necessity. And we use mustn't and can't to express prohibition. The last one. You don't have to, don't need to, or needn't close the door. Here we use these verbs to express lack of obligation or necessity. Well done, my students. Now open your workbook, page 84. 8B, exercise B. Choose A, B, or C. Let's do the first one as an example. Flight attendant. Excuse me, you, space, sit down now. The aircraft is about to take off. What is the correct answer? Excellent, my students. You must sit down now. Because here we use must to express obligation or necessity. It is necessary to sit down now because the aircraft is about to take off. Excellent, my students. Now pause the video, then choose A, B, or C. Now let's check your answers. Well done, my students. Okay, my students, this is the end of our lesson today. Thank you for watching and goodbye.